Crank up the volume and get ready for real-world bird hunting by listening to the Wingmen Podcast by Eastman's. Now your host, Todd Helms.
All right, guys, the sponsor for today's episode of the Wingmen Podcast is Federal Premium. We have been partnered with Federal since the beginning of Wingmen, and I personally couldn't be happier about that. I think that Federal makes the best shot shells on the market. And I say that because I've been shooting Federal shot shells since I was a kid. I used to run a trap line when I was a kid for spending money and help me get some hunting gear. And I would always buy 1 or 2 boxes of 20 gauge shells at the beginning of the fall. They're usually August or September. When I got old enough and started hunting waterfowl and graduated to the 12 gauge, I would buy a couple boxes of, had to be steel. It was steel back then. And I always bought Federal. Back in those days, I was usually buying what would equate to the blue box Federal right now, which blue box is either Speed Shock or, Speed Shock and steel. And I believe it's like Top Gun would have been my upland bird load for grouse and woodcock back in the day, and rabbits and whatever I needed. But the point of that is I've been buying Federal ammunition since I was a kid, back in the old days in the, well, I'm not going to date myself, but I've been buying it a long time. I've believed in that ammunition for a long time. It's something that my family always shot growing up, and I'm so proud to be partnered with them, and the fact that we can bring you messages like this and content like we bring thanks to Federal. So if you're looking for shot shells out there, you should be giving Federal your first look. They do a ton of wonderful conservation work with different groups like Pheasants Forever, for example. And guys, they're always putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to conservation, when it comes to supporting the shooting sports. They do all the right things, and they make a phenomenal top quality product to boot. The waterfowl lineup of shot shells, we shoot everything from Speed Shock, which is the blue box, to Black Cloud TSS, and now the heavyweight bismuth, you name it. They have a shot shell for every budget, a shot shell for every application. And I know from experience that if you're shooting something else, if you're shooting another brand, you give Federal a try, you're going to be impressed. You're going to be pleased. I see it every year in duck blinds and goose blinds. I see it every year in pheasant fields. I see it every year hunting sage grouse. I see it every year hunting turkeys. Invariably, the ammunition that gets the most praise is the Federal Premium ammunition. And there's good reason for that, guys. They are a top tier production facility. They are constantly pushing the technology boundaries of what you can do with shot shells. They are constantly looking for the next big thing. They're constantly innovating and constantly working to bring hunters and shooters the best quality shot shell that they can possibly bring. For example, I've got these little 410 TSS, heavyweight TSS turkey loads right now. They are 3-inch shells of 9-shot as TSS loads, and I'm going to be shooting these for turkeys this spring. I've never shot turkeys with a 410. It's kind of popular. The whole sub-gauge thing has gotten really popular lately for everything from turkeys to ducks and geese. And I'm gonna dip my toe in the pool of this with a turkey. I've killed a pile of upland birds over the years with a 410. That was what I started with all the way up till even today. I still shoot a 410 a lot of times for mountain grouse. But I've never shot a turkey with it. But this Federal Premium TSS load is going to tip the scales in my favor, and I'm excited to do it. If you haven't given Federal Premium TSS loads, especially the turkey loads, a try, guys, you need to. They are hands down the most devastating turkey load on the market that I have used. I've shot them all. I've shot a bunch, and day in and day out, the Federal Premium TSS turkey loads, almost impossible to beat. And for my bang for the buck, Yeah, I think I've killed in the last 5 turkeys, I've shot 5 times, and as you should, right? You shouldn't be missing turkeys, you shouldn't be wounding turkeys, but things happen. But the important thing to remember is if you buy the best, you're not going to be disappointed. And so that's Federal Premium in a nutshell. So Federal Premium, thank you for bringing us today's episode of the Wingmen Podcast.
Hey guys, Todd Helms with another episode of the Wingmen Podcast. As you can see, this time I am solo. Working on some hot guests for you. I've got some things coming up that you're definitely not going to want to miss. I'm working on a local veterinarian. When I say local, I mean like Billings, Montana local, that's got a different take on dog food and among other things. So all you dog guys out there, you're going to want to tune into that episode. He and I are both super busy at the moment, so we're in the works on that one. It's coming, so just bear with me on that one. I also had a chance earlier in the week to sit down and record an episode with my dad. That's not something that I've ever done, and it was incredible. My dad is an amazing man. He really, really is. He is the reason, obviously, that I'm here, but more than that, he's the reason that I'm a hunter. He's the reason that I'm a bird hunter, in particular, a wing shooter, as I like to say, because I don't just hunt upland birds. I hunt waterfowl, I hunt turkeys, I hunt anything that flies. I'm on it. So Dad lit that fire in both my brother and I when we were young, and we had a chance to do a hunt together last year in January, right as our duck season here was winding down. And my brother flew out with his family, and we had a really cool, basically long weekend. But that was the first time that my dad and my brother and I had gotten to share a duck blind or really do any serious wing shooting together in like 15 years. We've done some deer hunting and things back in Iowa where they live. Shot some put and take pheasants at a preserve over my dad's old dog, and but hadn't done anything like skin in the game, real world hunting until last year. And I'm not going to spoil that episode. That will drop. That episode's actually, we're going to hold that one, and we're going to drop it at the same time we drop the video for that hunt, which is planned tentatively for this fall. So you're going to have to wait. Just be patient. It's coming, but you're not going to want to miss it when it does drop. And I want to time it with that video so it's relevant. Man, we talk about all kinds of stuff, from the history of hunting in our family, how my dad got started, all the way up to a pretty tearful moment about him and the answering the wingman question: if you could only hunt one bird one way, what's it going to be? And my dad got teared up and said woodcock over his short hair, his now gone short hair. They had to put her down a couple months back. She's just old, and it was time, but still pretty raw for him, and it showed. And he's only the second person I've had tear up on the podcast, and that's okay. That's okay. That, you're getting somewhere and you're touching real world stuff when you hit nerves raw enough to bring out that kind of emotion. So I'm excited for you to hear that podcast. I'm excited to release that podcast. It's going to be phenomenal. But the reason that we're sitting here today, or I'm sitting here talking to you today, is that turkey season's over. We got a long time before waterfowl season begins, or any kind of bird hunting begins, and therefore it's training time. And I want to walk you through what training in the summer months looks for me. And what I mean by training is, I mean more than just dogs. I'm talking about shotguns. I'm talking about physical fitness. I'm talking about just training to be the best man that I can be, both a husband and a dad, and just a good human being. Working on me to be the best that I can be. And that rhymed. Anyway, but let's talk about shotguns first. I've noticed the last couple of years, everybody says that shotgun shooting in general is a perishable skill. Everybody knows that, right? You get rusty if you don't practice. And I turned 45 a few weeks back in May. And last year when we went to Canada in August, when Brandon Mason and I went to Canada, man, I came out of the gate and I'd done a little bit of shotgun shooting that summer, but not as much as I normally do. And I was a house of fire initially in Canada. I was shooting the lights out. I hit everything I was shooting at. It wasn't a shot I couldn't make. It was like, whoa, you don't. One of the things that my dad instilled in me very early on is you don't brag. There's two things you don't brag about. You don't brag about your shooting. You don't brag about your dog, because both of them, as soon as you start to brag, are going to let you down. And that was beaten into me as a kid. And I don't talk about how good my shooting is when I'm on a tear, because I've had it the opposite way too, where I couldn't hit my butt with either hand. But anyway, last September in northern Alberta, man, my shooting was hot. I was on fire. Everything I shot at fell, and made some shots that I specifically took, like after everybody else was done, the volley was done, there was a bird scooting out the side or a long shot, and I'd try those to make sure, man, is it really me? Is my shooting as on as I thought it was? And it was phenomenal. You've also heard me talk about how the importance of quality shot shells, and I'll get into that here in a minute, talking about how important it is to shoot quality shot shells like Federal Premium. And a shotgun that fits you, like, the Savage Renegade fits me really, really well right out of the box. But I didn't practice quite as much as last summer as I normally do. And we got the new guns, the transition to Savage, and they fit really well. And the function of the gun was incredible. And I hit a slump when I got back from Canada, got into the big game time frame here on the Eastman's side of things, and just got into that. It was so focused on shooting my bow that I wasn't shooting a shotgun hardly at all, and got really focused on my elk hunting and a deer tag that I had, and didn't put the time in behind the shotgun that I should have been. And I was super focused on Hondo as well, and we'll get to that in a minute. But last year was his first year in the field and with real hunts, and I wanted him to be as dialed as I could possibly make him. So I wasn't doing a lot of shooting. I was working on other things, and man, did it show. There was a couple of times when it was my turn to pull the trigger, and man, I couldn't hit anything. I was shooting behind on geese, not swinging through. I was shooting underneath the ducks, and I was peeking, and my mechanics were just shoddy, absolutely shoddy. And so I specifically grabbed a box of clays. I grabbed a couple boxes of shells, and I took the thrower, and I went out in the desert, and I pulled an entire box of clays, and I just worked on mounting the gun, on my footwork, and on my sight picture, and worked on just breaking single birds, bang, bang. And then I loaded 2, and then I will load 3 and run that magazine dry. And I got my shooting eye back, but it took deliberate practice. And that's what I'm all about right now. That's what I'm all about going into the summer. I'm not going to let life get in the way. Yeah, you have to temper it. There's a lot of stuff going on out here. Wyoming's an awesome place to be in June. We have bear hunts going on. Turkey season's over, but the fishing's starting to pick up. And it's like there's lots of things to distract you from getting that practice in. I'm a family man, as you guys know. I have 3 little kids, and that's demanding in and of itself. And I have a very demanding career here with Eastman's, hosting Wingmen things and writing and editing on the Eastman side. And there's a lot going on, and it can make getting out and getting deliberate shotgun practice a chore. I have some phenomenal shooting facilities around me, as do probably most of you listening to this and watching this. go get yourself dug into those. Get involved. They can be a great opportunity or a great way for you to meet people, like-minded people, which, man, in today's world, we need all the brothers and sisters that we can get in the hunting and shooting fraternity and sorority, or I just say family. Let's call it a family. We're all on the same team, and we need to act like it, and we need to know each other and be we need to be supporting for each other. And being an active part of a gun club, a sportsman's club, whatever you want to call it, whatever you have in your area, is a really good way to meet like-minded people. You never know, man. You might meet your new duck hunting buddy. You might pick up some new duck hunting spots. You might pick up some pheasant ground. You never know. You might be able to take a first-timer out for their first hunt. You don't know what's going to happen unless you go do it. And deliberate shotgun practice is a great way to do that. What do I mean by deliberate? I mean more than just going out in some place in the woods or the back 40 or the desert with your buddies and flinging birds up and just shooting them. If that's what you've got access to, that's better than nothing. But build some competition into that. Learn how to play Annie Oakley. Learn how to do some shotgun games. Try to get some different angles while maintaining your safety. That's huge. But just standing there and shooting straightaway birds isn't going to do much for you in the long run, other than keep your hand-eye coordination sharp. If you're really focused, like I was late last fall, on footwork and on mounting the gun and on some fundamental brush-ups, there's nothing wrong with that. But man, put some skin in the game. Go to a shooting range. Go to a sporting clays course. Go shoot some skeet. Go shoot some trap. Get some angles mixed in. Get some real life scenarios built into your shotgun practice this summer, so that when it comes time in the fall, man, you're hitting, I don't even put a number to it. Say you're running 18, 19 out of 25 or better, or you've made improvements from hitting single digits or maybe not hitting a bird at all, and now you're hitting some. That practice is going to pay dividends in the fall. And I'm reminded of a story. When my brother and I were living together, fresh out of college, we were working, menial jobs, trying to figure out what exactly, college is done, now what, which is ridiculous now that I think back on that, but it is what it is, was what it was. We had a really good time, and we were contributing to society. We were working jobs, we had money, it was fine, but we shot in a skeet league at the local gun club and the Flat River Gun Club. And once a week, sometimes twice a week, we'd go over and in the evenings and we would shoot skeet. And it was registered birds, man. This was competition. And I tell you what, that when there's competition involved and you're shooting against somebody that you're highly competitive with, like your brother, in my case, man, that just pushed us to be the best shooters we could be. And we'd go out, and most of the time we were shooting in the low 20s. Every now and then we'd break 24, 25, but we were pretty good shots, and due in large part to some phenomenal coaching that we had available to us. A family friend named Kim Miller, who my dad talks about in the podcast that we just had, helped us with our fundamentals, helped us learn how to shoot the game of skeet, and others as well. So we had a lot of advantages, but we were part of that family of shooters there, and we do barbecues and we do events, and man, it was fun. It gave us something to look forward to every week, gave us something constructive to do. And I tell you what, when fall came and that first flock of honkers decoyed on September 1st, nothing left the spread. It was like 3 shots apiece, 3 dead geese. And it was incredible how that deliberate practice made us really, really top-notch shooters. And it'll do the same thing for you if you go do it. So I would, like I said, recapping that, deliberate practice means do it with a purpose. If your purpose is figuring out your gun mount, okay. If it's figuring out your footwork, okay. If it's learning how to use a new gun, getting comfortable with it, that's perfectly legitimate as well. And so those are the things when I say deliberate practice, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I mean. playing those games with your hunting buddies, so there's some competition. It's completely up to you. And in today's world, there's so many awesome resources to help you with your fundamentals, help you with your gun mounting, help you with your footwork and your spacing and all these different things. So many awesome fundamentals out there that are available to you. Just YouTube it. That, man alive, there's no excuse not to be out there and just pounding away on clay targets this summer and getting better. There's a couple reasons that I am harping on this really hard. One being, you're going to get more enjoyment out of your time in the field if you're a good shot. It's just, you're not, it's nice to know that when you pull a shotgun up and take a shot, you're probably going to hit what you're shooting at. Shot shells are expensive in today's world too. And if I'm out burning through a box of 25 rounds or to shoot a couple of geese or a couple of ducks or some pheasants, my goodness, that adds up fast. So I want to be the best shooter that I can be. And you owe it to the birds. And that doesn't get talked about enough, because a lot of times, guys, when we think we missed, we didn't miss. We made a marginal or a poor hit on a duck or a goose or a pheasant. And I kind of say those in particular because most other birds in particular come down pretty easy. Thinking woodcock, grouse, they're pretty fragile. But you've got to hit a pheasant solid. You've got to hit a goose and a duck solid to bring them down, even close in the decoys. But knowing when you're out practicing, deliberately practicing with a shotgun, you're going to get familiar with how lethal your range is. You're going to know, okay, that's, 50 yards is as far as I can really hit anything and be effective. I can't even break a clay bird much further away than that. If you're not breaking a clay bird, you're not going to kill a live bird, a real bird. You're just going to wound it. So knowing your effective range is helpful, and then being able to make shots and put the bird in your pattern and not fringe them with part of it, or just rake them with a couple of stray pellets and they fly off and they suffer a lingering death. That's no good. We owe it to the game that we pursue to be the most ethical hunters we can be, and being a good shot is part of being an ethical hunter. So that's another reason that I love deliberate shotgun practice and why it's just massively important. So a note on gear. I said I'd talk about equipment. One of the things that I noticed last year when we were in Canada is that we started the week, first of all, ammunition was provided by the outfitter. So Brandon Mason and I took a handful of our federal premium ammunition with us. So we had some on hand to shoot and to film B-roll with and different things. But we didn't take normally on that hunt, I'd take 2 cases of ammo. And I didn't take that much. I had a couple boxes apiece. And when I was shooting the federal premium, and Brandon was the same way, birds were just dropping, just falling out of the sky. Like you expect, right? Shoot, bang, it comes down. And we switched to another brand, and it's not a brand that's readily available in the United States. I think in some places out east you could find it, like up in the Northeast, but I had never heard of this brand. It's a Canadian brand of shot shell, and it's an economy shot shell, and it was cheap, and that was why the outfitter was buying it, because it was high volume, lots of shooting, just get them ammo. And man, could we notice a difference. We went from killing, personally, I would go from doubling on almost every flock when it came to geese, sometimes shooting triples if the opportunity presented itself, if there were enough birds in a flock, to, I was struggling to kill one bird. And I thought, is my shooting deteriorated? What's going on? And right down to the point where I'm just bearing down on these birds, pulling the trigger, and I'm watching feathers puff off these birds, or birds doesn't even look like they're hit and they fly off. I'm like, what is going on? And I'd throw a couple federal premium black clouds in. That's what we took with us. We had federal premium black cloud 3-inch No. 2 steel. And I'd throw that back in the gun and bang, 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 kill birds. What is going on? Well, it was the shells. And you hate to say that. You hate to blame it on equipment because most of the time it's a loose nut on the operating handle that's the problem. But every now and then it is your equipment. And, man, it was noticeable in Canada last year. And then I didn't have really, once I got my bugs worked out when I got home, I went back to shooting the federal premium loads, whether it was TSS or bismuth or whatever it might be, and speed shock, and just smoking birds. Your shells make a difference, and shooting the highest quality shot shell that you can afford is not only going to result in more hits for you, it's going to result in dead birds instead of crippled birds or wounded birds. If the federal blue box speed shock is what you can afford, that's an awesome option. That is an awesome, awesome shot shell, guys. It is something that is an absolute go-to for several of the outfitters that I know. I've shot piles and piles of ducks and geese with that stuff. I've shot pheasants with it on state land in South Dakota where non-toxic was required. But if you can up it, if you could spend a little bit more and get to the black cloud, you're going to notice a massive difference. Just more lethal shot shell. You're going to spend a little more money and you get more performance out of that. You're going to get a little more range. You're going to get, you're going to notice it. And then you step up from that to bismuth. The new bismuth loads, especially the heavy bismuth that Federal's loading this year, it's going to be readily available for you guys. I tested it all last year, and whether you're shooting it out of an old vintage shotgun or you're shooting out of something brand new, it just smacks birds. Just smacks them.
Hey gang, going to take a break and bring you a word from our sponsors. Wow, Black Rifle Coffee. We'll talk about a meteoric rise in the world of coffee. They went from a small, little veteran-owned company to literally being on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange and as a publicly traded entity in a very short order. And I couldn't be prouder of being associated with Black Rifle Coffee. They make some phenomenal products. If you guys are like me, you love your coffee. You have a hard time even functioning without it. And they have a whole slate of products, but I'm going to talk about my favorite one. And they have all kinds of different roasts, and while they're all good, I am so partial to the JB roast, the Just Black. I am an old school dude. I still sharpen pencils with a pocket knife. I still take handwritten notes. I write love letters to my wife, handwritten ones. I do things the old school way, and a lot of people would say the hard way. I like to hunt waterfowl with a over and under shotgun. You can tease me for that if you want to, but I'm old school. And the Black Rifle Coffee Company's JB roast is an old school black coffee roast. It's just black. And I got to say, I have tried them all, and that one's my favorite. The JB roast from Black Rifle Coffee fuels us here at Wingmen, fuels me especially here at Wingmen. If you go sit in a blind with me, and I pop open my coffee cup, there's going to be Black Rifle Coffee JB in there steaming away on those cold days, keeping us hot, sharp, and ready to go for that next flight that wings into the decoys.
All the way up to the stuff that I swear by, but it is costly, is the Federal Premium Heavyweight TSS, the Black Cloud TSS in particular, where duck load 3x9 blend, and number 3 Flight Stopper steel, number 9 TSS, and then the goose load that I shoot is BB Flight Stopper steel and a size 7 TSS. I can shoot ducks and geese with either load. I can swap them back and forth, and if I had to pick one to do it all, it would be the BB by 7 load. That's just wreck shop, just phenomenal. She kills little ducks like teal great, kills big ducks like mallards great, and just smokes honkers, just pancakes them. So that is my go-to load. And an example of why I hold that load in particular in such high esteem is the very last hunt that I did last year with a friend, Greg Mayton. You've seen him on the podcast, or haven't had him on the podcast. I need to. It's a good idea. But he's been on a bunch of the videos. He and I did a put-together goose hunt on the very last day of goose season last year in February here. Birds were super stale, super skittish. Had a little spot where I knew they would fly up out of the river and rest for about 20 minutes, maybe 30, and then fly out in different directions to go feed. And so I told him, I was like, let's set up an A-frame and 24 decoys right where they're going to rest. I've been watching them for 2 weeks. They do the same thing every morning at 8 o'clock. They fly up off the riverbank and sit down, and they sit there and gabble for 30, 45 minutes. I said, I think we can kill a quick 2-man. And we did. I shot, it's a 5-bird limit, 10 geese between the two of us. I shot 5 times and killed 5 geese. And I'm not talking they were, knocked them down and then the dog brought them back, Hondo brought them back, and they're still alive. No. I'm talking stone dead, late season, fat, feathered up honkers. And my shots were anywhere from in the decoys at about 20 yards to big swings. Granted, this is the last day. These birds are super skittish, so we were taking the shots that we had available to us. And I killed, I think 4 out of those 5 or 3 out of those 5 birds I killed were pretty steep. We're talking probably 40 plus yards, maybe 50 or 60, kind of right on the edge of where I'm comfortable shooting, but I know with that load that I can do it. The last bird in particular, they came by kind of high. Most of the birds had gone. This was going to be like the last group. I needed one more bird to finish out, and swung through, touched it off, and he just crumpled, just folded, and he was up there. So much so that Greg looked at me and he's like, man alive, is that you shooting your depleted uranium TSS load from Federal? I was laughing. I said, yeah, I am. But the point of that is, if you're burning through, cases of ammunition a year, shooting lots, high volume, the TSS probably isn't the best choice for you as a waterfowl hunter. The Black Cloud, the Speed Shock, one of those two is going to be awesome. They're going to suit your needs really, really well. And that's still the majority of what we shoot here, those two. But if you're only going to shoot a couple limits of birds a year, say you're a guy that goes out and you only get to go out duck hunting a couple times a year, and it's important for you to be successful the times that you go out. Man, you should be shooting that Federal Premium Black Cloud TSS. The 3x9s for ducks and the BB/7s for geese and ducks. That's what you should be putting in your gun. Guys look at the price tag on, I think, and they look at it, but they don't think about if they're shooting regular steel, you're only hunting a couple of times, you want to get the most bang for your buck. You want dead ducks. You don't want crippled ducks. You don't want to have to shoot a bird 3-4 times. You want dead ducks. And you're only gonna shoot maybe 12 to 25 rounds or 20 rounds to 50 rounds a year. You should really look at that as kind of an investment in your success, I guess. I know I didn't always think that way. I was definitely the bargain shell guy for a long, long time. And I've always shot pretty high volume in my hunts. I've always hunted a lot. And so I needed cases of ammunition. And but lately, man, I can definitely see where if you're the guy that's going to buy a couple boxes of shells, going a couple hunts a year, you should be looking at the TSS. It's just wicked. It's worth its weight in gold. It's going to pay dividends for you in the field. So that is what I'm talking about shot shells. Now, for practice, for your deliberate shotgun practice, Federal's got a pile of loads out there. You can find them just about anywhere. The top gun load's pretty hard to beat. I'm shooting 2 3/4 inch 8s for all of my shotgun practice. Now, if you get into competition, you might want to look at some of their competition loads. A little more expensive, a little more premium components, get a little bit more performance out of them. But man, for day in, day out practice, the Top Gun load is really, really good, really hard to beat. And I shoot probably 2 or 3 cases of it every summer. Anyway, look hard at that stuff, you guys, when you're practicing, and look hard as you're taking stock. Coming or going into next season about what you want to do for ammunition. It matters. Shotguns. Oh man, shotgun fit is probably the most important and often under-talked or underlooked thing, or overlooked thing, if you will. They think, oh, I like the way this gun looks. Yeah, it feels okay. Go out and shoot it. And then they can't hit anything with it. It's probably because it doesn't fit you. And most shotguns today, like the Savage Renegade, have adjustable fitment, where the stock can be modified to fit you, whether it's height of comb, length of pull, cast on, cast off, drop it heel. There's lots of different things between shimming and different fits on the stock, different pieces you can change and swap out. That's what I love about the Savage Renegade, is if I get somebody come out and they're going to go hunting and they need to shoot a Savage and they don't have one of their own, they pick it up, say it doesn't fit them. I can make the stock longer if it's too short. I can make the comb higher if they can't see down the barrel. There's lots of options, and it's fast. I love that about that Savage Renegade. Just that AccuFit inspired stock is just, it's awesome. So kind of a shameless plug for the Savage Renegade, you guys. I've been super impressed. I've shot a ton of shotguns over the years, and that one is impressive. It's big. It's a big gun. There's no doubt about it, but it balances well. It points really well. It swings really well. And it just works. I'm excited. I don't know, but I'd like to see Savage, and Savage, if you're listening, I'd like to see you come out with a 20 gauge in the Renegade that's a little bit lighter receiver. That would be, I think there's a market for that. And I think a lot of guys, especially some of the older guys and with modern shot shells like TSS especially, or bismuth, the 20 gauge is pretty potent. And when it's shooting the right stuff, and I definitely would like to see a Renegade in that. I don't know if Savage is coming out with one. I haven't heard a word, but when I do, you will know, and I'll talk it up and I'll do a review on it in the whole ball of wax. But Savage, if you're listening, there's an opportunity for you. And if I know Savage and they do not rest on their laurels, I would bet that it's coming. But I don't know. Don't hold me to that. So that is all I'm going to say about shotguns and shells and all that stuff. Take it for what you will, guys. But man, there's a lot of people out there that have got more shotgunning and wing shooting experience than I do. But there's a lot of people that don't have near as much either. I'm no expert by any means, but man, I love doing it. I've done a lot of it. I know what works. I know what doesn't. I know what works for me and what doesn't work for me. Take that as you will. Apply it where you can. Now, the other thing I'm going to be practicing on over the summer is continuing to make Hondo into a just badass, more than he already is. Man, I love that dog. I love Mackinac too, and you guys are going to see Mackinac in some videos a little bit here and there still. But man, he's 11 years old, and we learned last year, especially with Hondo, that Mackinac, I'd let Mackinac have the first few birds, and then he was pretty content to sit in the blind and soak up loving, sit around, and it's almost like he was just the old man, just enjoying watching the young guy work. So Mac's not 100% retired at 11 years old, but he's pretty much there. I'm not going to ever take him on hunts by himself again, unless it's pretty easy and Hondo can't go. They're going to be a tandem, a team. They work pretty well together. Hondo is more polished in the training department than Mackinac is, and Mackinac's 11 years old, and his, quite frankly, to be blunt, his give a damn is gone. He does what he wants, and he still minds. He's a great dog, but he gets a pass on a lot of things at 11 years old. He's earned it. He's done more. That dog's helped build this Wingman brand, guys. If you think back on literally the bulk of what we've done, Mackinac's been in it. we're releasing a sage grouse, the full-length sage grouse video that's over an hour right now, and I'm stoked for you guys to see that. And I didn't realize how much Mackinac there is in the video. And that video is more than a hunt video. I'm going to rabbit trail for a second about the sage grouse film. The sage grouse is on the cusp of being listed on the Endangered Species List, has been for a few years. There's lots of factors for that. It's like an onion. The more layers of the story we peel back, the more layers we found. There's some things we know we can do, that we know we can fix. Taking feral horses off the range is massive. Managing ravens, nest predators like ravens as well, needs to be done. Mitigating cheatgrass to break the fire cycle of cheatgrass is huge. Continuing to develop energy, oil and gas responsibly, like we are doing in the state of Wyoming, and just improving upon habitat as much as we possibly can to help these birds. They're all things that we can do. Like I said, there's lots of stakeholders. There's lots of things that are happening with the sage grouse. But the biggest thing is, if this bird gets listed, you're going to see an impact on the access that you have to public lands that fall in the sage grouse habitat. You're going to see restrictions. You're going to see agricultural restrictions, like restrictions on grazing. You're going to see oil and gas restrictions, which is going to affect the national economy, not just the economy of the western states where the sage grouse lives. You're going to see restrictions on your recreation, things where you're not going to be able to go in certain areas at certain times because the birds are nesting or they're breeding or there's a sensitive population in there. There's just a lot, and it's a slippery slope on a bird that's pretty mysterious, and there's a lot of factors going into their decline. Drought being a big one. The bird's own cyclical nature being another one. There's just lots of things. And so we wanted to frame the story of the sage grouse inside of a hunt, and we did that. We went and hunted some birds, and then we broke down. I think we talked to 7 or 8 different folks from that work directly with sage grouse, from oil and gas folks to land management folks to government folks. I mean, you name it, we talked to them. Game and fish personnel, retired game and fish personnel, biologists. We talked to everybody. As many people as would sit down and have a conversation with us, we chatted with them. And the result is incredible. It's an incredible film. I think right now we're over an hour. We're trying to whittle it down in the final stages here so we can get it delivered to you in the next week or two. And we're shooting to have it be under an hour, right around 45 minutes. We're trying to get it to air on the Outdoor Channel. It's going to be airing, the Wyoming chapter of Dallas Safari Club is going to be airing it. And we had some phenomenal partners that worked with us on that. And I want to, thank you to you guys. I would like to encourage you to watch the film. And say you're living in the Midwest or down south, and you're like, what the heck's a sage grouse? Or you know about sage grouse, but you don't really care. Well, let me tell you something. Starts with birds like sage grouse, and if things go the way they could, it could be rough grouse next. It could be bobwhite quail next. For you guys in the South, man, your bobwhite quail are struggling. It could be wild turkeys next. The point is, if we don't band together and help conserve and protect what we have, and I notice I did not say preserve, because there's groups out there that are masquerading as conservation groups, and they're not. Defenders of Wildlife being one, the Humane Society of the United States being another one, Western Watersheds Project, you're another one. You're not conservationists, you're preservationists. And that's not how the North American model of wildlife conservation works. Hunters, anglers, recreational shooters, guys, we are on the same team, and it is time for us to band together on issues like sage grouse, on hunting seasons. I could sit here and just rant about this, and I'm not going to. Watch the film, please, and see how you can get involved with sage grouse, or how you can get involved with something else like sage grouse in your own backyard. Like I said, maybe it's wild turkeys, maybe it's bobwhite quail, maybe it's woodcock. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's, Atlantic flyway mallards. I don't know. The point about it is it's not just sage grouse. This is a bigger story than that. And one thing that we wanted to get across was it is applicable to multiple species and to multiple audiences. And so please watch the film. It's going to drop on the Eastman's YouTube channel as well in its full length. There will be lots of different ways. We're going to share it with you guys and make sure that our audience has complete access to it. I would ask that after you watch it, you give us some comments, some feedback, what you think, and share it. Make sure somebody else watches it. Send the links to your buddies, to your friends, whoever, your congressman, your senators, your governor, NGOs that you work with, whatever it might be. Just helping to get that word out there is vital. So back to the dogs. Wow, that was a rabbit trail, but thank you for bearing with me. Mackinac, we're retiring him, semi-retiring him. Hondo's going to be continue to get the bulk of the work. And holy smokes, did he not disappoint last year. He was flawless, not flawless, but he was incredible. I don't think a dog's ever truly flawless, no matter how good they are. But practice this summer is going to consist of more steadiness work. I don't think a dog can ever be too steady. That's obedience. And as Barton Ramsey says, his mentor said, the root of most dog training problems are obedience problems or something like that. But it boils down to obedience. Continue to work with Hondo's on his obedience, on his steadiness. He takes hand signals pretty well, but I'm going to run a bunch of T drills with him this summer. We're going to play a bunch of baseball. I got a local baseball diamond where I'll set him on the pitcher's mound and I'll put bumpers at first, second, and third base, and then again in right field, center field, and left field. And I will be at home plate, and I will be directing him back, over. I contemplated teaching him like a sled dog, teaching him G for right and haw for left, but just over with a hand signal is where we're going to stick with for now. And he's pretty good at that. But when we introduce things like new places and multiple bumpers, those are things that he's got to work through. And last year we were really controlled on how I hunted him. I didn't do a lot of shooting last year when I had Hondo in the field because I was handling the dog. And I will need him to get to the point where he's kind of on autopilot for me. Never going to be 100% that way, I don't think, but he needs to be kind of on autopilot a little bit, and so I can shoot and talk to the camera and do those things more than I did last year. So that's deliberate practice, is drills. We're going to drill down into steadiness, T work, hand signals, multiple bumpers. We're going to continue working on blinds, and we're going to continue to increase distance. One of the things that he struggled with a little bit last year were blinds that were further than I could throw a bumper, and that's pretty common. Unless you have a launcher or someone to go, or you go hide bumpers, it's difficult to get a dog to search further than you can throw. They get used to that. They get used to that range, and they know that, man, that bumper's got to be right here somewhere. There was one bird in particular last year that I sent him on. It was a mallard that we knew we'd hit, and it sailed and then died. Just fell out of the sky, dead. You know that bird's not crippled. It's dead. Fell on land on the other side of the river, so I had to send Hondo completely across the river and then about 100 yards back up the bank through brush and grass to where the bird was marked. Again, we can't see the bird, but we know it's there. And I sent him. He took a nice line. He got in the river, and he kind of started looking around, and this is another habit that I have to break of his, is he checks in with me, and he needs to just go until I stop him. But I got pretty hard on him because he wasn't controllable at all for a while. And now he's got the habit where he looks back at me to check in. And it's not the worst thing in the world in a hunting dog, but if we were definitely doing hunt tests, he'd get crushed for that one. So, and I'm not worried about hunt test scores with him. He's a meat dog and a family dog. So anyway, back to that story. I sent him. He checked the river, kind of looked around. He hit the bank and checked with me and kind of veered left, and I stopped him, and I whistled him back, and he went straight back. Wow, took a nice line, nice line right towards the bird. And he was gone for probably, seemed like 5 minutes, was probably a minute. Comes back, no bird. I'm like, what are you doing? You were right there. Sent him back again. Probably did this 5 or 6 times, and he wasn't bringing me the bird. And he was going right on a dead line, right to where he was, until he starts figuring he's got a hunt. So then he's hunting up and down. I thought, well, maybe it fell over here a little bit. Anyway, I was able to get across the river, which we didn't think we could do. I was able to get across the river and walk back there. Took the exact line that I'd lined Hondo on the first time, put him at heel, and walked him down that line through the brush, and there was a woven wire fence. He could not, a dog can't fit through a woven wire fence. He couldn't get through it, and the bird was literally 5 feet on the other side of the fence, and you could see where he dug trying to get to the bird. He could see it. He went right to it, marked it. Anyway, frustrating moment for me because he did what he was supposed to do. We just came up short. So I jumped the fence, grabbed the bird, and no, that's not what I did. I didn't jump. I picked him up and threw him over the fence. Well, picked him up, set him on the other side of the fence. He got the bird, came back, and then I grabbed him and lifted him up over the fence. Yeah, that was how it worked. And we had the opportunity to do a couple other blinds later in the season, and he was flawless on them. That last goose hunt that I was talking about a little bit ago, there were some geese that had sailed that my buddy shot, 2 or 3 of them. They were out. The one bird was probably 300 yards away, out in the field, and it was alive, standing up, looking around. Hondo mops up the birds that fell close, and I line him, get him at heel, and I line him up, and I'm like looking at his ears, and I can tell he sees the bird. And I went, Hondo. And he's a rocket, man. Just took off. Heat-seeking missile at that goose and smokes this bird, takes it down, mops it up, brings it back. That was kind of the culmination of his year, and I'm stoked. And I want to get him to the point this summer where those things are just automatic, and it's just more work. It just takes more work, and keeping him in top physical condition and working drills. So speaking of physical condition, that's the third thing I said I was going to talk about and why that's important. Well, I'm 45 years old, and I want to be the best husband and daddy that I can be the best man that I can be. I want to be able to enjoy my hunts. And that comes with a level of dedication and commitment. And what that means is I need to be physically active. And that's going to look like different for everybody. I love to lift weights. Love it. And the older I get, I think the more important it is, the better I feel when I'm on a regular lifting routine. But I can't just lift like I did back in the old days. I need to mix in some sort of cardio, whether it's big long walks with the dogs in the morning, which is great, especially if I throw 50 or 75 pounds of sand in a backpack and make that walk into a ruck, because that translates, guess what, into my big game hunting out here, my elk hunting, my deer hunting. And those are vital. Can't do those if I'm not in some modicum of shape. And that also comes with my lifting program looking a little bit different, but I try to lift 3 days a week, and I try to get as much cardio in between those lifting sessions as I can. Usually walks. Sometimes I'll throw some sort of a metabolic conditioner at the end of my lifting routines, like a Tabata session, where I do, say, grab 2 kettlebells and just carry them back and forth, doing a Tabata. If you haven't heard of Tabata, it's 4 minutes. It's a 4-minute block of 20 seconds of work, 10 seconds of rest. And you wouldn't think it'd burn you, but man, it does. And you get to the end of it, and if you can do 2 of them, especially busy working guys or working gals, you can get 2 Tabatas in a couple times a week. You're gonna be amazed what that'll do for not only your conditioning, but for your metabolic rate as well, which helps you with not putting on the excess pounds. As I've gotten older, I've always been thick. As I've gotten older, I've gotten thicker, heavier, denser, if you will. And one of the goals that I have is to go into this coming fall having shed about 30 pounds. That's kind of my goal. I should draw a couple of really good tags this year, big game tags, and I want to be in the best condition I can be for those. Plus, kind of vowed to myself, 45 years old, it's time to kick it into gear. I've got 3 little kids. I got a wife that needs me. I want to play with my kids. I want to have fun, and I want to be the best man that I can be for them. And that comes with deliberate practice, deliberate work in the gym, on the road, in the mornings. I'm trying to work in as much Mountain Tough Fitness. If you guys have heard of them, that's a fitness gym program. Great group of folks up in Bozeman, Montana. And again, they're really designed for functional daily fitness that is very applicable to the big game side of things, but just life as well. Just being the best shape you can be to live the best life you can. And I really like their workouts. Super easy to follow, and they've got leveled workouts for all different kinds of folks. In fact, when I say I'm lifting 3 times a week, I'm actually doing one of their lifting routines, their programs, 3 times a week. I can't do, the program is a 5-day-a-week program, and right now, the shape that I'm in, I can't recover well enough to do it 5 days a week. They're pretty intense. And when I was in my 20s, no problem. Knock that out easy. I take a little longer to recover these days. So trying to watch my diet, trying to keep as much protein in my body as I can. And definitely not limiting carbs or anything. I'm pretty lucky. I don't have to do those things, but I am intermittent fasting, and I'm trying to only eat between the hours of noon and 8, which usually equates to about noon 30 and 7. But on days where I can push it further and only hit a really short window, I won't eat until 5, and I'll eat from like 5 to 7, and then I won't eat. That has done a lot of things for my mental sharpness in the mornings. It's done things already for my weight loss, which is great. I feel pretty good, but I'm not going to beat myself up either. Like today, I came off a pretty hard workout day yesterday on Monday, and I needed some calories, man. I didn't get the sleep I needed to get, and I needed some calories. So I ate a pretty good lunch, pretty hefty lunch today, and I ate at about 11:45 instead of noon. So I'll just shut it off tonight about 6:30. And that's okay. You got to be able to be flexible too. It's real life, and not beat yourself up. You know, you want to have that cocktail after work, or a couple beers on the weekend, or whatever. Or, the birthday cake at the birthday party. It's life. You got to live life. But I'm just trying to live the best life that I can live physically. And that's where I'm at. Those are the 3 things that I'm going to be deliberately practicing this summer: my shotgun shooting, my shotgun shooting, Hondo's continued training, and my own physical fitness for various reasons. I don't think, just as a human being, we owe it to ourselves and the people that love us and that we impact to be the best people that we can possibly be. And I'm taking that seriously. So there is a holy smokes solo edition of the Wingmen Podcast, bringing you some things that are near and dear to my heart, a project in the Sage Grouse Project that is just vitally important, and I'm in love with and passionate about, and I want to share it with you guys. I want you to see it, and I'm excited for you to see it. And some things that I'm going to be working on and that I'm going to challenge you to work on too. Be the best you can be. If you weren't satisfied with your shotgun shooting last year, fix it. If you're not satisfied with where your dog training's at, fix it. If you're not satisfied with where you're at physically in life, fix it. But it's time. Summer's a perfect time to get out and work on those things. So there's your challenge. I throw down the gauntlet. Get after it, Wingmen. And hey, till next time, we'll see you in the field.